Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my Resident Evil Retrospective. Today we're going to be looking at Resident Evil Nemesis, the third entry in the series and the last of the numbered Resident Evils on the Sony PlayStation. Before the Resident Evil series became an over-the-shoulder Gears of War knockoff, it relied on tension, atmosphere and subtle visual suggestion to keep players engaged. The original Resident Evil was a masterstroke of brooding menace, where a silent room was often more threatening than a whole alley full of zombies, and a single box of shotgun rounds could often mean the difference between life and death. Resident Evil 2 expanded the story of its predecessor, introducing new characters and settings, featuring improved graphics and a more complex plot. It was a huge critical and commercial success, so the stage was now set for the inevitable sequel. Nemesis has an interesting production history that was largely shaped by events outside of its control. By the late 1990s, and with two highly successful entries under its belt, the Resident Evil bandwagon was well and truly rolling. Multiple spin-off games were in development, as well as the next major title in the series, which was intended to be set on a cruise ship and featuring an Umbrella operative trying to return a sample of the G-Virus from Resident Evil 2. Unfortunately, something even bigger than Resident Evil was on the horizon, and that thing was the PlayStation 2, scheduled for release in the year 2000. Once Sony's new console came out, any games developed on the PS1 were likely to sink without trace as consumers flocked to the latest system. Capcom soon realised that their ambitious new Resident Evil game was unlikely to be ready before the PS2 launched, but neither were they willing to sit back and do nothing for the next couple of years. What they needed instead was a quick fix, something that could be rolled out quickly and efficiently, preferably in time for Christmas 1999 before the PlayStation 1 became an obsolete system. The team began reviewing the list of spin-off games in development for a likely candidate, and the game ultimately chosen was Nemesis. The core of this game's concept was a huge, unstoppable tyrant-like enemy assigned to hunt for the player through the ruins of Raccoon City. It seemed like a good idea and a safe bet, so they went for it. With no time to lose, Nemesis immediately went into production. To save development time, the same game engine as Resi 2 was used, as well as the control scheme and inventory management system. They even set portions of the game in the same place as Resident Evil 2, allowing them to recycle some backgrounds from the previous game. Most of Capcom's best developers had already been allocated to Resident Evil Code Veronica for the Dreamcast, which was developed in tandem with Nemesis, so initially only a small team of 20 or so developers were available to work on the PlayStation title. Jill Valentine was chosen to be the main character because series regulars Claire and Chris Redfield had also been earmarked for Code Veronica. Nemesis thus became a bottom-of-the-barrel kind of game, taking the best of what was left and trying to mesh it into a halfway decent product. The development team couldn't create a new game engine, but they did try to push the old system as far as they could and work in as many new features as possible. A quick dodge move and the ability to rapidly turn 180 degrees were intended to offset the sluggish controls, while exploding barrels and other interactive elements tried to increase the immersion of the static backgrounds. A new ammunition creation tool allowed players to mix and experiment with different ammo types, giving them a degree of tactical flexibility. The Nemesis itself was given the ability to break through walls and attack the player in previously safe areas to heighten the feeling that they were always at risk, and it was armed with a rocket launcher to make fight scenes more challenging. A quick choice system during Nemesis encounters also created a branching story with multiple endings, giving players the choice to fight, run, or try some other unique course of action. Anyway, through some combination of black magic and an expanded development team as it neared completion, Resident Evil Nemesis was released in time for the holiday season in 1999. Once again, it was a success, selling over 3 million copies worldwide and getting generally positive reviews. But most important of all, do I think it's any good? Well, my general consensus is, yeah. You play as Jill Valentine, a member of the STARS Alpha team from the first game. Disgraced and scapegoated after the fallout from the mansion incident, she's quit the police force but continues her efforts to expose the ill deeds of the evil Umbrella Corporation. Unfortunately for her, she gets caught up in the T-Virus outbreak in Raccoon City before she can finish her work. Trapped in the zombie-infested town, she soon finds herself allied with Carlos Oliveira, an Umbrella mercenary brought in to help combat the outbreak, while at the same time being hunted by a seemingly unstoppable bioweapon called Nemesis. Resident Evil Nemesis thus serves as both a prequel and a sequel to Resident Evil 2, being based heavily around the events of that game. Anyone who played Resi 2 will pretty much know what to expect here. You fight your way through zombie-infested streets, collect ammo and health, solve the occasional puzzle, and meet characters who may or not wish to help you. Nemesis uses the same game engine as its predecessor, so the graphics are reasonable enough. The backgrounds are generally high quality and the zombie count has been upped once again, meaning that it sometimes feels as if you're fighting overwhelming odds. Enemies look reasonably smooth and detailed, backgrounds are rich and well drawn, and the more open areas give you a chance to explore Raccoon City in all its devastated glory. On the gameplay mechanics front, zombies can now climb stairs. This might sound perfectly reasonable these days, but back then it was quite a shock to me when it first happened. An ammunition creation tool allows you to mix and match different ammo types to create new weapons, providing a chance to tailor your attacks to suit your playing style. The ability to turn 180 degrees is handy as it allows you to quickly retreat from a losing battle, although the quick dodge function was always pretty temperamental, mainly because it uses the weapon aim button, so there's times when you want to stand and fight and you end up launching yourself to the side instead. It also requires almost perfect timing, so your chances of successfully doing it are slim at best. On the plus side, it was nice to see Jill Valentine back in action. She was my favourite character from the first game, and I missed her in Resident Evil 2. The plot expands on her character and gives her a bit more personality this time around, allowing her to display more depth and resourcefulness, and a chance to play off her supporting character Carlos. Although there isn't a great deal of chemistry between the two leads, their interactions are entertaining enough to make you care about them. And the Nemesis itself is a welcome addition, a hulking, menacing figure capable of breaking through walls and wielding a rocket launcher. Its appearance usually gives rise to an active time event, meaning you have the choice to run, fight it, or do nothing at all. Either choice will have an impact on the game's plot. I also like the unlockable Mercenaries sub-game that becomes available once you complete the main adventure. It doesn't add anything to the story, but it's a neat little feature that encourages repeated play to gain higher scores. The story itself is nothing special, and it could certainly do with being longer, but I guess it does the job. The real issue here is that it's very obvious where the developers have cut corners to save time and money. Everything has this been there, done that feel to it, like the game is basically just retelling the same story and expecting you to get excited about it. So overall, I still have mixed feelings about Nemesis. I don't know whether to view it as a middle-of-the-road sequel that sits squarely in the series' comfort zone and rarely tries to break new ground, or as a beefed-up spin-off game that tries to do a lot with very little, or as the final entry in the traditional two-dimensional pre-rendered style of the PS1. Maybe it's a bit of all three. One thing's for sure, however, Resident Evil would never be the same after this game. And that concludes part 3 of my Resident Evil retrospective. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. Join me next time for part 4, where we'll look at Resident Evil Code Veronica.